Some backstory. My girlfriend cheated on me at the start of our relationship, and I lost all my trust for her. For a year or so, I'd go through her stuff like her phone, computer, etc. when she wasn't home. I never found anything, and she really seemed to regret what happened, so I snooped less often until I stopped entirely. I don't know what compelled me to look again today. I guess I was curious after not doing this kind of stuff for a year. Below, I have a copy of what she wrote. The document on our computer was titled Journal. I knew she started one several months ago, and I even read a few entries with her back then. The last few entries, the unrelated paragraphs have been omitted, and their dates are below. I'll say the date that it was written, and then read it out for you. On June 7th, 2012, this is what she wrote. Here's the thing, I hate showering. Not because I like being dirty, but because I always get freaked out that someone will break into the apartment while I'm vulnerable. I talked to Alex about it, and he has the same fear. It's kind of funny. He says that he always brings his phone in with him and locks the doors, so that if anyone breaks in, he can call the police before anything goes down. Good idea. But I'm way too lazy to keep track of that stuff, and he's ridiculously meticulous when it comes to his routines. Well, shit, you know, how you have certain fears like that, and you spend your whole life thinking, oh, I hope it doesn't happen this time. Like, I always had a fear of someone knocking on our door late at night. We're talking 2 AM here, and it happened last year. Alex ordered pizza from some all-nighter place without me knowing, and I almost peed myself. Well, today, my shower fear happened. At least kind of. I got into the showers today and closed the curtain. I was home alone and the doors were unlocked, but I always make sure our front door is locked. After I began soaping up, I heard a loud thud from outside. Our AC is loud though, and when it turns out, it makes a sound like that. I wasn't nervous until I realized no air was coming from the AC, and it was off. Neighbors, I decided. Then I heard a click, the kind of click sound a door makes after being closed for a while, and then being opened. I froze. I tried listening for someone or something, but I heard nothing. I was too scared to look behind the curtains, I'll admit. So I kept showering. A few minutes later I felt uneasy, like I was being watched. Our curtain is 2 layers, one plastic, one cloth, so I couldn't see anything behind it, but sometimes I could make out shadows if someone was there. Well, I couldn't make out any shadows, but I swear I saw the curtain move. Not just once either, it looked like someone was slowly caressing the outer cloth curtain over and over again. I could even vaguely make out the sound of skin rubbing on cloth, despite the sounds of the water hitting my back. I wanted to cry, scream, whatever, but I sucked it up and just kept showering. The curtain movements stopped several minutes later, and a whole half hour later, once I ran out of hot water, I decided to get out. I'll keep it short, journal. I was ecstatic when no one was there or anywhere in the house. June 11th, 2012. This is what she wrote. It happened. It fucking happened again. I was showering tonight while Alex was at a friend's house. I undressed and hopped in, and several minutes later I heard that thud again. Again, journal. No AC. I was showering with the door open this time, so if someone was there, I wouldn't have heard them come in. The stroking happened again though. The curtain just kept moving, slowly. I was really scared, but just like last time, I powered through except, holy shit, I was washing my finger when it happened. I tried to keep my eyes as open as possible when I shower. That shit when the killer stabs you while you're naked with your eyes closed is some scary stuff. Still, I had to close them at some point. My technique though is to open them ever so slightly for half a second, every few seconds, to reassure me that no weird ghost or monsters appeared nearby. Well, maybe I was hallucinating, but while I was opening my eyes for a split second, I swear I saw a finger peeking from behind the curtain, near the shower head. A finger. Oh man, I want to tell Alex what's going on, but he'd just laugh at me. I mean, I'm getting out, and nothing is there, so I'm really starting to think it's my imagination. July 7th, 2012. This is what she wrote in her journal. I realized it only happens when Alex isn't home. There is never any weird curtain movement, never any loud thuds or fingers peeking. Today, I was proven right. It started like any other shower. I do well to lock the bathroom doors now. I undressed and put all my clothes in a pile by the door. My panties, which I take off last, I left near the tub. As soon as I got in, I wanted to kill myself. I forgot to lock the second bathroom door we never used this time. How? I literally told myself 10,000 times to lock the damn doors and managed to only lock one. Then I fucking realized that the balcony door was unlocked. Alex told me to lock it last night after he finished working out there. Why didn't he lock it himself? I knew the horrors would start again. I was right. Thud, click, then the curtain stroking again. Please no finger, I thought. Please no finger. No finger. Whew. Thank God. And then I heard him.
Your panties smell so good. I couldn't help myself.
I was swearing, not out loud, but my mouth was wide open and inside my head all I heard was screaming.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Why'd you leave me the way you did, baby?
Something about the voice sounded so familiar. What the fuck are you? I'll fucking kill you. I'll eat your fucking eyes out and rip your skin off if you don't get the fuck out. Yeah, that's me trying to out-crazy a psychopath. Didn't work, and thinking back on it, it's obvious why. I sounded like a retard. I just heard him laugh. That laugh, journal. Fuck, so familiar. After the laugh, there was just silence. I stayed in the shower for an hour, eventually crying before getting out, and I called the police. They came. They didn't find anything, and told me to call them if anything else happens, and that they will stay in touch if anything comes up on their end. I'm not telling Alex. I don't want to worry him. From now on, I am bringing a knife into the shower. Reddit. This was bad enough. There was one more entry though, with no other content. She writes her journals every day usually, and the gap was almost a month long after the entry you just heard. God, I wish I knew this stuff before. I left on a trip to deal with some family problems out of town for a few weeks. She was alone in that house the whole time. God, why didn't she tell me? Here is the last entry in the journal, immediately following the previous one. August 5th, 2012. It's been so good, journal. The way he harasses me, touches me. He knows how to touch me. I knew his voice sounded familiar. I was right, as always. In a few days we will take care of the problem. Then we can have the whole home to ourselves. I need him inside me. But for that, I need him dead. Seriously guys, I have no idea what to make of what you just heard. I just got back to town a few days ago, and she was quieter than usual, I'll admit, but nothing alarming at all. She smiles a lot. Right now, she's sleeping next to me while I type this. Tomorrow, I'm calling the cops and turning her computer over. Right now though, I'm just trying to figure out how to get through the night, because every time I close my eyes, I hear some noise. And I remember reminding myself to lock that balcony door this morning. Rereading these entries reminded me that I never actually went and locked it. Damn it, why do I keep my shipping supplies out there? I'm not gonna lie, I'm way too scared to get up and lock it. Way too fucking scared. Because the last few minutes it sounded like someone was just slowly opening it, an inch every 30 seconds. I'm looking at my girlfriend right now, and I can tell when people sleep. I did too many sleep studies in college, and I know what to look for. Regular breathing, relaxed muscles, eyes closed, but relaxed. Face muscles, relaxed. And yet, she's breathing more rapidly than she should be, irregularly too. Her face looks strained, like she's having a nightmare, but there is a twinge of happiness in it, like it's a good dream. I can't help but feel like she's awake. And God, I still hear that sound in the living room. The phone is on my desk on the other side of the room. I'm going to submit this story and try reaching for it to call the police. Right now if I have to. It has been a long time, folks. Brace yourselves. This is a long one. Worth it in my opinion. I couldn't leave out any details that might be important for you guys to help decipher what the hell is going on. When I wrote my initial update, I did not mean to end it on such a cliffhanger. A lot has transpired since then, but let me be clear that the reason I didn't post a prompt update was because it takes a lot of time and commitment to sit down and write everything. For about a week after my post, things got pretty hectic. After that, I just couldn't bring myself to write down what happened. Some of you messaged me and asked me if I was dead. When I finally found time to post on Reddit again, you guys messaged me and told me that you were glad I was alive. A few of you demanded an update. I guess we should rewind right back to the moment I submitted my story and reach for my phone. It was quite the ordeal to reach across the floor to the desk for it. Every inch I moved forward, I felt like my girlfriend would pounce on me. It was late at night and my mind was going wild, especially since I had read several other terrifying stories on Reddit before writing my own. Well, I got my phone, and as soon as I did, I pre-dialed 911. I must have sat there for at least 15 minutes, debating if I should call or not. Victoria was still sleeping, or at least pretending to, and I could still hear her irregular breaths. I decided to wake her up. I gently nudged her and her eyes shot open. I asked her if I could talk to her real quick. She didn't answer. Her eyes were still wide open and fixated on something in the room. I told her I really needed to talk and that I had a few questions. No response again. I sat there in bed a few seconds and examined her demeanor. She was just staring behind me with cold, lifeless eyes. Before I could realize how creepy this was, I figured out what she was staring at. In our window, I could see his reflection. It was a man in a hoodie by our desk. I didn't think twice. I didn't do a double take. I didn't wonder what could happen next. Within a few seconds, my fingers pressed the call button on my phone. As soon as I did that, I lunged over Victoria to grab a glass of water sitting on the windowsill. The rest was a blur, but what I remember happening was me tossing the water behind me and slamming the glass on the windowsill to get a sharp edge. I remember Victoria screaming at the top of her lungs. Before I could turn around and get stabbing, I was grabbed by the neck and pulled backwards. The glass still in my hand, I began to panic and jammed it at the arm around my neck. I thought about how lucky I was that I didn't cut my face up pretty bad in the process. The arm relinquished its grip on me, and by now I was off the bed, laying on the ground, stained in blood. The next thing I remember, I was waking up in the morning as if nothing happened. I had a terrible headache, but there was no blood to be found, no broken glass, nothing. I talked to Victoria about what happened and she said that she heard me mumbling in my sleep, but that's it. For a little while, I honestly thought I had imagined finding the journals, posting on Reddit and everything else. Then I logged on to gaze through the front page and noticed I had almost 100 replies to my post. I searched for hours for the tiniest piece of glass or a rogue bloodstain, and I found absolutely nothing. Defeated, I got into bed that night with the idea that I had fallen asleep after writing the story and dreamed the rest. I woke up in the middle of the night with a fucking epiphany of a lifetime. My phone. I had jumped out of bed and got it from my nightstand. I went to recent calls. I looked up at my last one. I dialed 911 last night. They called me back too, but someone seemed to have picked up since it was not displaying as a missed call. Could it have been me, or... The last thing I remember, I was looking at Victoria. Then, once again, I woke up in the morning with no idea what happened, except this time my girlfriend was nowhere to be found. I was laying on the floor next to the bed, and my phone was smashed on the other side of the room. Most of Victoria's belongings were gone too. I went on Facebook and got a buddy of mine to come over. I told him what happened, and we called the cops. They combed the place over and couldn't find anything. I asked them if we could file a missing persons report for Victoria, and they told me no, since it seemed like she just packed up and left. They got kind of suspicious of me at this point, and I felt like they thought I beat her or something. I went on her Facebook to see if she had updated it, and sure enough, she had. Her relationship status was set to single. She had defriended me, and her last status said, "Oh, how sweet is he, how sweet he tastes." I didn't know what to do. My buddy stayed over for a few days to help me through the things. I was a mess, but I began to recover pretty quickly. As much as I loved Victoria after she cheated on me years ago, I had closed myself off emotionally. Things went back to normal pretty quickly. My car broke down and I lost quite a bit of cash on that. But on the other hand, I am being considered for a promotion at work. I got a new phone, went back to work, all that good stuff. I even sent her a text every few days to see if I could get an explanation. No response. I wondered if she was okay, and I checked her Facebook often enough to know she was. That was until last week when her privacy settings changed, and I could no longer view her profile. Later that day, I got a text from her. "We will finish the job." I replied with, "What the fuck?" "Soon, you will know him as I do." "Are you insane? What the fuck is going on?" "I know what you've read. I know what you know. You left the door open when you took out the trash today. He doesn't miss a good opportunity. There are places in my old home that you would never think to check, and now you will belong to him, as I do." I didn't respond. I didn't do anything but nope the fuck out of there. I drove to my buddy's house and crashed there. I've been there since. I texted her back later with, "You're a fucking joke. Fuck you." No response on her end. I am now in the process of attaining a license to buy a gun. My life is falling apart, but I keep pretending it isn't. The last text from Victoria I got was yesterday. "Orange," she said. I texted back with, "What?" A minute later I realized I was wearing an orange shirt. My heart raced. It had to be a weird coincidence. My phone buzzed, and the noise made me jump out of my chair. I read her reply. "Soon." For those of you just tuning in, about a month ago I found some really disturbing journals on my girlfriend's computer. After tons of crazy stuff happened, I moved into my friend's house temporarily and began receiving really messed up texts from her. So, last time we talked Reddit, my girlfriend was sending me some disturbing texts that were by all means on the verge of harassment. The last text she sent me had me on my toes the last few days, but she hadn't sent anything since then. I don't know if that's better or worse. My updates are sporadic and far apart, mostly because I'm not a fan of updates with no substance. So, this time I waited until I had enough information to come back to you guys with. I took the advice you guys gave me to heart. No, I did not contact the police again because her text didn't continue. However, some of you mentioned stalking her back. I do know where she works and goes to school, so I started there. I called up a mutual friend of ours who has class with her and asked him to hang out. We met up and I told him everything. He was blown away and didn't seem to believe me until I showed him the text, my post on Reddit, and the police report from before. He told me he hasn't seen her in the last several classes. Our college classes go twice per week, so she hadn't been attending in at least a month. I had no idea what her work schedule was, since she'd work random hours. I called in and asked if she was there, and they said she wasn't. Well, stalking her was out of the picture. Another idea you guys came up with revolved around her ex-boyfriend, the one she cheated on me with. This is where the bulk of my investigation has been taking place, since I have found out some really odd things about him. First off, when Victoria broke it off with him after their affair, he flipped out. He cursed the two of us out and went into solitude. After a little while, he moved out of state and posted some weird Facebook updates. I don't remember where they were, but they were pretty off-putting. A little while after that, he deactivated his account and we hadn't heard from him since. Naturally, I'm assuming that he's back in town, although that doesn't explain the violence, the creepy journals, and Victoria's behavior. He was a very angry guy with a lot of issues, but he wasn't very physically confrontational. I began asking around. I asked all the people that knew him about what happened to him. For the sake of using less pronouns but retaining a level of anonymity, we will call him Charles. I learned more about what happened to him after he moved away. He stayed in touch with his pals for a few months, and the ones I talked to agreed that he was off his rocker. He would constantly talk about Victoria. Someone visited him, and then the rumors began. I heard about how he had photos of Victoria, most of which were compromising, all over his bedroom walls. They said his apartment smelled like rotten food and that his bathroom floors were stained with dried urine. Most people dropped all contact with him, and those who didn't were simply sad for the guy. Charles eventually deactivated his account as well as his phone. No one heard from him again. Is he back now? I have no idea. I'm still staying with my buddy in his house, but tomorrow night will be the first time I am home alone here. I'm terrified to say the least. It's not even Charles that scares me, or the idea of losing the person I love so much. Folks, I remembered a very odd detail from the night I was attacked by the person in the hoodie. I mentioned stabbing his arm with a broken glass. What I completely forgot about until now was his hand. It had a ring on it, a huge class ring. Charles wore his high school class ring everywhere he went. However, it's not that this is throwing me off. The reason I noticed the ring that night was because of the finger it was on. It was on a finger after his pinky. It was on a sixth finger. When I last left you all, I mentioned spending my first night alone since I moved out of my apartment and into my friend's place. My friend, Reagan, and her roommate Jim were going out to the movies that night. I'm pretty sure it was a date. It always seems like they have some kind of friends with benefits thing going on. I was prepared for the worst that night, but it was fairly uneventful. I stayed up, locked the doors, did the classic paranoid routines one would expect. Reagan told me that they'd be home by midnight, but midnight rolled around and I was still alone. I was terrified. I lay on the couch staring wide-eyed at the ceiling. Every sound was a bullet to my heart. Every vibration was a knife to my gut. I have no idea how long it took me to fall asleep that night, but eventually I did. It was past noon when I had awoken. I wandered around the house and immediately sensed something was amiss. Reagan and Jim were still gone. My first thought was that they had shacked up somewhere for the night. Then I found a post-it note on the fridge, a note that did not belong to me, Jim, or Reagan, or anyone of a sane mind. How did I know? Attached to the note, on a string threaded through it, was a finger. It was a finger with Charles's class ring on it. I inspected the handwriting, and it was hardly legible. But what really stood out from the mix of scribbles and letters was a very clear, "We have them, and soon we will have you." I rushed out of the kitchen and into the bedroom where my phone was charging. Only my phone was not there. I flipped every pillow, blanket, rug. It was gone. I ran back into the kitchen. The note was gone, the finger was gone, and on the counter was my phone. I turned it on and I saw I had a new text. It was from an unknown number. This is what it said. "Contact the police and they die. Contact their family and they die. We are watching. They are ours. Soon you will be too." Suffice to say, I didn't listen. I called the cops right then and there. I explained what happened and talked to the sergeant. He explained to me that the text was not definitive of anything, but it didn't sound like anything they could look into. Once again, I had no proof there was a problem. Reagan and Jim are adults, so I could not report them missing. Not after less than 1 day. The note was gone too. I couldn't even give the cops permission to search the house because I didn't own it. I went back to Reagan's place that night. Where else could I go? I figured if Victoria and whatever the fuck she's involved with really did everything they seem to have, then I would be dead if they wanted me dead anyway by now. I checked my phone every half an hour for new messages. At midnight, my perseverance was rewarded. A completely innocent text from Victoria's number. Well, the content was innocent. You guys can be the judge. "Hey babe, what's up?" I didn't reply. Instead, I got ready for a nice, very overdue shower. Then, another text. "Babe, can I come to your place?" Suddenly, my phone exploded with one text after the other. "Please, can I come over? Please, honey, I promise I will be good. You can't hide from me forever, sweetie. Don't ignore me like this." I was done with this and ready to hop in the shower. For a brief second I thought this was all just one big practical joke. In desperation, our minds can often resort to the illogical. I got undressed and couldn't resist. I checked my phone one more time. One new text arrived. "Fine, Alex, then suffer." I hate to end my update here. A lot more has changed since then, but I spent the last 3 hours gathering my memories and putting this on virtual paper. I have a very important task to complete tomorrow, and I'd like to be well rested. Know this, the events that followed still transpire to this day, and hopefully my next update will be sooner rather than later. I did end up showering that night, by the way. I felt like I was being watched the whole time. In hindsight, I probably was. It's funny how we remember things after the fact, when we really sit down to recollect what happened. In Reagan's shower, located in her basement, is a window. The window was at street level. Anyone walking on the sidewalk could see it. They couldn't see inside though, it was a blurred window. However, it could be opened from the inside, and I think I now know why it was such a chilling shower. I think I know why I kept feeling a cool breeze every few seconds. When we last talked, I was staying at the home of two of my friends, Reagan and Jim. Reagan and Jim went missing along with my girlfriend Victoria. I had no idea where any of them were, and my only contact with them for the following week was a few creepy texts sent from my girlfriend. I knew they were kidnapped. I knew they must have been going through hell. The person that did this to me let me know very clearly that if I tried to contact authorities, they would be dead. They were not playing games. The note I found with a severed finger attached to it was a proof of that. So, here we are, a week after the disappearance of my friends, and a few weeks after the disappearance of Victoria, my girlfriend. I had more or less given up on life. I quit my job and was living off of my savings in a house that was not even mine. It wasn't hard, even with only a few $1,000s to my name. Reagan and Jim had a ton of stuff I could use. The best part is that I didn't need to pay rent. I would spend my days playing video games and browsing Reddit, and I would spend my nights drinking heavily and fantasizing about ways that I could rescue the people I loved. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I finally got hit with reality. It was midnight and I was buzzed and watching a terrible movie on TV. I heard a car pull up outside on the driveway. I thought nothing of it, and I kept watching that terrible movie. Then I heard a muffled scream. Shit. I remembered that I had a fucking psychopath stalking me. I got up slowly, trying to use my ears to figure out what was going on outside. I heard footsteps, someone heavy, another muffled scream and a grunt, then a few seconds of silence. Finally, a knock on the door that made me figuratively shit my pants. I just stood there like an idiot, waiting for something to happen. A minute or two went by, and then I heard the car speed off. I didn't know what to do, so I checked outside the window. Nothing. I looked into the peephole in the door and saw nobody. By this time, I had gone over the harassment from this psychopath. Judging from how easily he or she abducted Victoria and my friends, they could kill me any time they wanted to. I was still alive, and because I was still alive, it was time for more drinking, more shitty movies, and more sleep. I don't know what time I knocked out, but I woke up in the morning with a splitting headache. I drank some water and made some breakfast. I remembered the previous night's events, and now that it was light out, I decided to check the driveway to see what the fuck happened. I didn't have to walk to the driveway to find out. I opened the door and saw her. Reagan, my friend, the one that owned the house that I was living in this whole time, blooded, naked, and pretty much dead. I dragged her inside and put her on the couch. Fuck. If I had opened the door last night, her condition wouldn't have been this bad. I could have done something. I got her water and tried to wake her up. She did. At first she had no idea where she was. I tried talking to her, but she was really out of it. She smelled really bad too, like urine and feces. I was pretty sure she was covered in it too, along with blood. There were cuts up and down her legs, groin and armpits. I just sat there and waited. I had a few drinks and watched a few terrible movies. In the evening she finally came to. She asked me what happened. "You tell me," I said. "You got dumped on the front door last night like this. What the fuck is going on? Where is Jim?" She talked slowly. She was still exhausted, and rightly so. "I don't remember much. Not yet." "You're an arsehole, Alex." "What?" I asked. "Why?" Why? Why the fuck am I still naked? Why the hell did he leave me out there all night? Why didn't you call the cops or take me to a fucking hospital? Did you need a hospital? No, arsehole, I'll be fine. I need a shower, and I need to call the police. You can't call the police, I told her. I already did. They couldn't do much because I had no fucking clue what the hell is going on. I also got a note with a finger on it that said if I contact the police, then Jim, Victoria, and you would be dead. A what? A finger? Yeah, look, I'm as confused as you are. I have no idea what's going on. I'm done trying to figure it out. When you're ready, tell me what happened. If you need anything, just let me know. I stood up and was about to walk out when she turned on her side and I saw her back. Holy shit, Regan. What the fuck happened to you? Words. I saw words carved into her back. I read them out loud to her. It read,
"Used up filth."
She began shaking. She ran to the bathroom to look. I heard screaming. I heard crying. I went in and she was on the floor sobbing. What the hell happened to you? I asked her. He fucking raped me. Who is he? I don't know. He tortured Jim. The things he did to him were so much worse. We have to go back. I remember how to get back. I remember where he took us. You're in no condition to do shit right now, I told her. Fuck off, asshole. Help me get into the tub. I can barely move. I'm covered in my own piss and you're just hovering over me like a fucking douchebag. I helped her up and carried her to the tub. Run the water, she told me, so I did. I was about to leave when she asked me where I was going. To give you some privacy, I said. I don't want privacy. I want to kill the piece of shit that did this. Sit the fuck down and listen. I know where he's holding them. Who's he? I asked. He only spoke to us once. The only thing I ever heard him say.
I am a Wendigo. I need flesh.
So, we sat there for the next hour, as she told me everything that happened to her in the last week. Guys, I thought I could fit this all into one last update, but there is more to tell. Rather than telling you Regan's story as I remember it, I'm having her type it out for you guys, and I'll post it when it's done and when she's ready for the world to read it. It gets pretty damn gruesome. I've asked Regan to type up her version of events rather than relying on my hearsay to get her story across. The aftermath of what happened to her still has her reeling, and she's still trying to recover. For those wondering, all the names in this story are real, except Charles from a previous update. This is Regan's story. So, as I write this, I can't help but wonder how the hell I got involved in the mess. Honestly, part of me wishes I never met Alex, or that I never let him stay at our place. The other part of me is so grateful for the help he's given me, and to be honest, I can't say that he's any better off than I am. None of us are. Now, after Alex gave me a rundown of the weird shit his girlfriend Victoria was doing, I offered to let him stay at my place while things settled down. He agreed and moved in. It was pretty quiet at first, but shit hit the fan fast. Jim, my roommate, and I decided to take our relationship from friends to friends with benefits and went out on a movie date before our night got crazy. Our night got crazy in the most fucked up way I can explain. Our theatre was empty at first, but it filled up with maybe half a dozen people. We were in the second to last row and the movie was about to start. It gets quiet for a minute or so while the screen asks you to silence your phones. That's when I noticed the heavy breathing behind me. I elbowed Jim and shook my head to see if he noticed it too. He did, and he laughed. We both assumed it was some fat guy with a medical condition. It must have been about half an hour into the movie when it happened. I felt a stabbing pain in my neck, and it was like all my nerves were on fire, and then nothing. The last thing I remember is looking at Jim, who was holding his neck, probably in pain too. I woke up, I don't know when or where, and I was in a bed. My head was throbbing, but I was fairly lucid, and it was dark, but in the corner of the room sat a small fluorescent lamp. It didn't seem to do much, the room was so damn dark. As I came to, I noticed I was chained to the bed. I had no fucking clue what was going on, and I looked around for Jim. I didn't see him, but on the other side of the room, I saw another bed. I could make out the faint outline of a person, maybe 5 feet tall. Hey, what the I was cut off before I could finish. The person in the bed let out the biggest shh I had ever heard. So, I lay there for a while, maybe 15 minutes, maybe an hour, I'm not sure. Suddenly, the room was filled with light. Was it the cops? That was my first thought. I was wrong. It was the fucking abomination. He, or it, was wearing a tuxedo and a burlap sack over his face. There were no holes cut in the sack, but I later found out there was a thing slit near the mouth area. He walked down the stairs and shut the door behind him. I figured out we were in a basement pretty quickly. I saw pipes and the frame of whatever building we were in. He walked down the stairs. I don't know how to explain that walk, but it was almost demonic. It was so uneven. He approached me, and I was shaking at this point. "What are you doing?" "Shh!" I heard the person in the other bed scream. Yes, scream. As he approached closer, I noticed that the tuxedo had holes in it. It was tattered, and it was stained. It was stained in blood. He stood over my bed and began slowly swaying back and forth. He slowly placed one finger on my lips. "Shh!" I heard the other person say again. I was fed up with this shit. I grabbed his finger and tried to break it. I didn't succeed. He hit me in the face with his other hand and began choking me. I must have blacked out because I remember waking up thinking it was all a dream. But there he was again, standing over the bed, swaying back and forth. Once again, he put his finger on my lips. It was cold, and I could feel his long nail digging into my gums.
"I'm a Wendigo,"
he said to me. His voice was like an echo in the room. It seemed like several different people said what he said all at once. He moved his sack-covered face closer to mine.
"I need flesh,"
he said. Immediately, his tongue protruded from the slit in the sack and he began licking and gnawing on my face. I started to scream. He began choking me again, and I blacked out again. I woke up in pain. My whole body felt like it was burning. I saw the person in the other bed again. It was a girl. She was sitting up and staring at me. "Don't you dare fucking shush me, bitch," I said. "I'm sorry that happened to you. I was trying to make you be quiet so that this didn't happen. I'm sorry," she said. "Wait, who are you?" "We can talk now, but only a little. He isn't at home. When he comes back, I will tell you and you must be quiet." I was persistent in trying to figure this mess out. "What's going on? Where's Jim?" "Is that the man he brought you with?" "He's in another room. He has plans for him." "We need to get out of here," I said. "No, we don't. We can't get out. I tried before. We're chained to these beds, and the beds are bolted to the floor, and there are no windows here, and the door is bolted shut." I began sobbing. "Don't cry," the girl said. "He doesn't like it when they cry. It makes you dirty. It uses you up faster." "Shut the fuck up," I said. My head still hurt, and I was tired as hell. I fell asleep, but I woke up to the sound of a door smashing shut. He was back. He walked down the stairs and approached me. Once again, a finger on my lips. This time, I stayed quiet. I should have screamed. I should have had him choke me again so I could pass out. He moved the covers off of me, and that was when I noticed I was completely naked. I began panicking, and that's when he started putting on something near the bed. I don't know what, but it spread my arms and legs wide, so that I couldn't move. He fucking stuck them in me, his fingers. His nails were so sharp, so jagged. He put his face between my legs. I felt that disgusting tongue creep from between the slits in the burlap sack. It hurt. It was like he was gnawing on me. I began moaning, as I was too afraid to scream. He continued doing what he was doing. I have no idea how long it lasted, but when it was done, he just got up and walked to the other side of the room. He sat down in a chair and didn't move at all. He just watched me through that sack while I tried moving, while I cried, while I stopped giving a shit and began screaming. This continued for a long time. I was given water. He would occasionally force my mouth open and pour it down. I choked a lot. My lungs hurt, but I drank. He would feed me too. Fuck, it was disgusting. He would sit by the bed with 2 bowls. He would take the food from one bowl and chew on it, then spit it out onto the other bowl. This process took a while, and when he was done, he forced me to eat it. God, I was hungry. I kept my mouth shut for the first few times, but then I couldn't resist. I had no idea what the food was. It was some kind of meat. I don't even think it was cooked, but I had no choice. He never let me use the bathroom. I urinated and crapped myself in that bed so many times. The fucked up part was that at first it made me happy. I thought he would let me take a shower and I could try to escape, or he would stop raping me, but he still did it all. If anything, he seemed to enjoy it more. The other girl never spoke another word. Sometimes I could see her watching, sometimes I would talk to her, yell at her, but she wouldn't respond. At one point she screamed at me, and it was the last thing I heard her say. "Why you? Why you whore? Why not me?" The man came running into the room and began beating her. She stayed quiet. I tried talking to him a few times, but I never got a response. I asked him about Jim and got no response. It felt so long, but one day he just unchained me. I was so weak I couldn't move. All of me ached. He walked over to the other girl and beat her until she was no longer moving, and then he left the room. The door was open. I stared at it. I could leave? His arm waved goodbye through the doorway. He was taunting me. He got some kind of a sick pleasure knowing that I couldn't leave. I was stuck there, dehydrated, exhausted, bleeding. And so the process continued. Then again, one day he unchained me. This time though, he picked me up and carried me to a van. He tossed me in the back and we drove. Inside, I thought he was going to kill me, but I was okay with that. I wanted to die. Instead, he tossed me on the front porch of my house in the middle of the night. I was still so weak. He drove off and I tried knocking on the door. I couldn't even reach the door. I gave up and fell asleep. I figured a neighbor would see me. The next morning, Alex found me. I told him my story, the one that you just heard. I still have night terrors, even though this happened months ago. I didn't find the courage to walk outside until last week. I still can't leave the area around where I live. I'm a wreck. It's been months since we finally put the hell behind us, but I still feel uneasy at night. Almost 1 year ago, my girlfriend was kidnapped, and the police had no luck with the case. I moved in with 2 of my friends, Reagan and Jim. My girlfriend began sending me weird texts, and we all got scared. One night, Regan and Jim went to the movies and didn't come back. A week after their disappearance, Regan showed up at the house, bloodied and naked. She told me about how she and Jim were drugged. She told me how she was kept in a basement and how she was raped. She told me how she met another girl in that basement. I knew it. I knew it was Victoria. 2 days after Regan got home, we set off to find this house of horror. After she told me everything that happened to her, she told me that she knew where she was being kept. I have one distinct memory while being transported. A stop sign. It had a cross street on it. I read it. Whitney Ranch and Patrick Lane. She paused for a moment before continuing. The basement wall was all brick. All the houses around here are made of stucco. I bet it sticks out like a sore thumb. I was skeptical. A kidnapper wants to blend in? Whatever the fuck this thing or this guy is, he's not holed up in some brick mansion. Why the fuck not? She said. How many weird ass houses do you see every day you drive by? Do you barge in there demanding to know if there are any prisoners in the basement? Shit, let's go there and fuck this guy up. Right, you're probably thinking that we should just call the police. The thing is, the last time I called the police, I found a severed finger in my house. The next time I called the police, Regan and Jim were kidnapped. When I called the police again, Regan was delivered to my doorstep in an absolutely disgusting condition, on the verge of death. Well, before we had our talk, we found something else in the house, a whole hand and a note.
More police begets more limbs,
is what it said. So, we went to Patrick and Whitney. We saw no mysterious brick house. We searched the surrounding neighborhood every day that week. Finally, we found it. A house made of brick, just like Regan said. It was small, 1 story tall. It was unkept, but that's not saying much in this neighborhood, aside from the building material. The house looked like any other house on the block. So, we went to Patrick and Whitney. We saw no mysterious brick house. We searched the surrounding neighborhood every day that week. Finally, we found it. A house made of brick, just like Regan said. It was small, 1 story tall. It was unkept, but that's not saying much in this neighborhood. Aside from the building material, the house looked like any other house on the block. Regan looked nervous, and I sure as hell didn't want to be here, so I told her, "You know we can still go back, right?" "He has Jim, Alex. Fuck. That may have been Jim's hand. That girl with me in there, that could have been Victoria." She was right. "Do we knock?" I asked. "Fuck no, we wait." Our car was parked on the other side of the road adjacent to the house. We waited and waited. Regan assured me that the kidnapper, a man who called himself Wendigo, left the home at least once a day. We watched the place in shifts during nightfall. Finally, around 4 a.m, the front door opened. I shook Regan awake. Someone walked out of the house, a tall man. The guy had to be at the very least 7 feet tall. He was skinny, and he was wearing a tuxedo. It was ripped and ragged. "Holy shit," I said. "He's just like you described. He's even wearing that weird fucking sack on his head." He locked his door and looked around. We ducked under the windows. Slowly I crept up. He was gone. "He'd leave for hours at a time, so now is our chance," Regan said. I was about to unlock the door when something hit the car with a loud thud. Shit, I screamed. My window shield was cracked, and it took a second to process what had hit it. And it was a fucking human head, horribly disfigured, pieces of it missing. I turned on the car and was ready to gun it down when I heard glass break and Regan scream. She was being pulled out of the passenger window. "Just drive, damn it." She kept screaming at me to gun it, but I knew if I drove right now, she would either be pulled out or have her back broken. I opened my door and circled around the car. We had no weapons on us, since our plan was to sneak in and call the police from the inside after finding Victoria and Jim. I was about to tackle this guy, but I just fucking stood there. This was no normal man. His hands were blood-soaked, his nails long and sharp, his movements were erratic and jerky. He pulled Regan out of the window and tossed her at a nearby wall. She blacked out. "What the fuck are you?" I asked. At least I think I said. I don't remember if I spoke at all. I was so terrified.
"I do not want her. She is filthy,"
he said. His voice was raspy and low. He stretched out random syllables and would stumble mid-word as well.
"I want clean ones, only."
I fucking turned around and ran, straight into his house. I heard his footsteps behind me, erratic as hell. I turned my head to see how far away he was. I had a few seconds on him, which normally would be comforting, but the way he ran, his legs were spread wide and he took gigantic steps, almost like leaps, and flailed his arms. It would almost be goofy if it weren't for that human speed. My lead was quickly disappearing. Then I remembered he locked his door. Well, shit. And here comes this psychopath running at me full speed. So I turned around and stood there like an idiot. Right before he tackled me, I dove out of the way. He hit the door and fell to the ground. I started kicking him and was screaming my head off. I saw a metal rod nearby, grabbed it and smashed his face in. He stopped moving. I should have decapitated the dude, but Victoria and Jim could have been dying at that very moment. I decided to call the police. I found his keys and opened the door. I immediately took out my phone to dial the cops. No reception. Typical fucking Sprint. I frantically walked around the place looking for the basement door, checking my phone the whole time. I opened a few doors and found nothing. His house was eerily normal. Finally, 2 bars. I dialed 911 and simultaneously opened the door. Holy shit. I stepped inside before I realized where I was. The smell was putrid and it was terrifyingly cold. It was a fucking walk-in refrigerator. No shelves, no storage, just an empty and cold room with vents. And a floor covered in meat. Human meat. In some corners it looked like steaks, chopped up with intent. The rest of the place was just blood, body parts and entrails. It was too late for my shoes. I stepped into what was literally an inch-high pool of coagulated blood. If it weren't for the adrenaline, I would have vomited. I closed the door and got the fuck out of there. I needed to find that basement. I looked up my phone. Call dropped. Fuck. I tried dialing again, but it wouldn't go through. Luckily, I found the basement. I ran down it and turned on the lights. The smell was putrid here as well, but it wasn't rotting meat. It was shit. Literally the smell of piss and shit. On one end of the room I saw a bed with chains on it, bolted to the floor. Regan's bed. I looked at the opposite end. It was Victoria. She was completely naked, covered in God knows what, rocking back and forth with her eyes wide open, staring at the wall. She was skinny. She literally looked like a skeleton. Holy fuck, babe. Vic, it's me. I'm here and I'll get you out of here. She kept rocking back and forth slowly, in perfect rhythm, not noticing me. She was staring at a clock on the wall. It was broken, with the second hand repeatedly going back and forth by one interval. Let's go, I screamed. Suddenly, she stopped moving and turned slowly towards me, her eyes still wide. She wasn't blinking, she stared right at me. No, it looked like she was staring through me. Her jaw opened far beyond the point where it should have. I heard bones cracking, and she bared her teeth. I didn't have time for this nonsense. I ran to get her, then I tripped. Then I blacked out. I wish I could say this story had a hero's ending, but it didn't. I was lucky, very lucky. The police traced the call, I guess, and got to me. We all woke up in the hospital. They didn't find this Wendigo psychopath, but they're searching for him. They didn't find Jim either. A horrifying thought went through my mind, and I asked them what that meat fridge was. They said it would take them months to run all that DNA, and most of it would be unreliable due to the cross-contamination. Regan and I were fine, but Victoria was in poor shape. We visited her at the hospital every day for months since then. The police department stationed an officer by her door during the night for her safety. I thought that was great of them. The guy was real nice too. He kept her company and genuinely seemed to care about her condition. I wondered if he would be able to protect her if that psychopath showed up again. He was tall as hell and had a gun. I couldn't complain, I guess. I've tried talking about the case with the cops before, but every time he would tell me that there was nothing he could tell me. For some reason I trusted him. Heck, I still do. I had so many unanswered questions about everything, but every time I think about asking one, I felt as though I didn't need to. Victoria is still in the hospital, and her condition doesn't seem to be improving that much. But there is always hope. Hey guys, it's that Grim Raider here. So, thank you very much for listening through that. I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Come on, you've got to subscribe. I mean, you might as well just slap a like, just throw in a comment here and there, you know, just because you can, really. I mean, nothing's stopping you from doing it, right? No, but seriously, thank you very much for listening through. If you want to listen to more stories like this, on the screen, you can click on either video. That's the two previous videos, or you can go in the description and there's also a link to the previous video. There's also a playlist link which will lead you to a lot of videos very similar to this with hundreds of awesome stories like these. So yeah, with that I leave you with thank you very much, and you'll hear from me very soon.